let's try a little bit of work on the 3 dantians. So just rubbing the hands to energize them. Shoulders relaxing. So we'll work on the lower dantian first. As we're rubbing, just feel the 4 sets of joints in the legs, the ankles, the knees, the hips, and the sacroiliacs. So when we're sitting like this, the ankles are together, the knees are apart, the hips are as though they're trying to push in towards each other, and the sacroiliacs are swelling apart from each other. So the legs are the limbs associated with the dantian, the lower dantian. And now just rubbing the knees mindfully. We should really say heartfully. So it's carefully. And alternating the feeling, that turning side to side of the head and the shoulders. So now it's become a single weighted exercise as I'm alternating the 2 sides of the body. And then just one knee. TLC, tender loving care. And then the other knee. Remember those Lonely Hearts ads in Time Out? The women would always request TLC and GSOH, a good sense of humor. So they wanted a man to care for them and look after them and to make them laugh. Quite reasonable, really. And then rubbing the hands again. Placing the hands over the sacroiliacs. Pull the shoulder blades back to try and get the thymus to lift. So it shouldn't feel that much different than when we hold the elbows behind the back. My thinking makes my sacrum swell and expand across, pushing the sacroiliacs apart and squeezing down into the tailbone. I have to be really aware of my sitting bones so that my tailbone between them is free. It doesn't actually touch the cushion. If it does, then the cushion's probably too soft. And rubbing the hands again. Rubbing the hands sort of focuses the mind in on them, warms them up a little bit, energizes them. Placing the hand over the lower dantian. Feel that sense of gathering. The more it gathers into the dantian, the more your sacroiliacs drift apart. And then just allow the head to sway side to side. My belly is stable and relatively still. And my head is the part of my body moving the most. It's free to move. Keep the eyes averted, so either closed or out of focus. And tip far enough over. Imagine you're draining water out of your ear when you got out of the pool. Trying to keep both buttocks on the cushion. And then rubbing the hands again, and then we'll do the middle dantian, the heart. And the arms, we have the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, and you can think of the shoulder blades where they reach into the spine as the equivalent of the sacroiliacs. Now the hands over the upper heart. There's a sort of lump in the sternum there, and it just fits snugly into the palm. And then turning the head side to side and feel it pulling from that point in your chest that your hands are covering. And the hands together in prayer posture. And now the hands up and down, pulling the head back and forwards. So head as far back as you can. And then down, really looking down on top of the fingers, chin pushing into the chest. And then the hands just up and out. Just imagine here you're gripping the handles of two cables and pulling them in. So shoulder blades pulling together. And now here you're pushing the hands out, shoulder blades moving apart. Imagine you really are lifting, moving weight. It's difficult. So I really have to pull here. And then here I'm really pushing something heavy. We have to imagine resistance to everything that we do to lend it more mindfulness. And then bringing the hands round to the front, keeping the arms straight. And just fold the hands back into prayer posture. And now rowing, reaching forwards, really letting the spine bow. Then pulling the elbows right back so the spine arches. And then just a bit more for the down chin. I forgot this one. Pulling the belly in, tightening the hands and the eyes, screwing everything up, pulling into the belly, and releasing strongly. Pulling in, pushing out. And rubbing the hands again, and we'll do the head point. Start this point by putting the hands at the back of the head. We're going to cradle the occiput. Just sort of holding the back of your skull. Feeling that point where the spine comes into the skull. You're either side of that point. Trying to keep the shoulders relaxing down. And now let's pump the ears. Remember, like we did in the warm-ups? Flicking the back of the head, so those points pretty much where your hands were over. Then rubbing the hands again. We're going to palm over the eyes, but before we do that, just place the palms over the temples. The temples are important as well. Temples are a bit like the knees and the elbows. Then rubbing the hands again. And then palming, so hands over the eyes, trying to block out all of the light. So it's totally dark. Trying to relax my shoulders. The more you relax the shoulders, the more the arms will tend to ache, being held up. And then the hands together and up and out. Fingers pointing, so holding your third and fourth fingers behind your thumb. And then glancing down to the left hand, glancing down to the right. Head is, you're trying to keep the head still. And the hands up again. Down into prayer. Now the hands up and down and the eyes following them, trying to keep the head still. Hands go up, the eyes follow the hands. Hands come down and the eyes follow. And the hands up and out again. Again, pointing the two fingers. And now alternating. Feel the flow into the extending hand. It's like you're wanting to look down that arm without actually moving the head at all. And then just bring the hands behind the back, holding the elbows. And now rotating the head. Changing direction. And then the head still, but now rotating the eyes, making as big a circle as I can with the eyes, trying to keep the movement slow and even, trying not to move the head too much. Changing direction. Now let's finish with the butterfly. Remember the soles of the feet trying to look upwards. Before we get into our standing, let's just use the wall. When we move side to side in riding horse, we're sort of pulling the ground. When I pull something towards me, it stretches me apart. Now here, I'm just pushing into the wall. I'm sort of trying to walk through the wall to compress my body. I'm trying to push the ground backwards. I'm trying to push the wall forwards, and that effort is squeezing into me, into my core. This is why we imagine resistance to whatever we do. because it will get us into the core, either stretching the core or compressing it. Here I'm compressing it. When it gets too difficult for the arms, just bring your forearms onto the wall. Good. And now into riding horse. And just glance down at the feet, make sure the big toe's pointing in a little bit. And push the big toes down to encourage you to settle down into the outside edges. My toes are pointing in a bit, and when I bend my legs, my knees go out. So I have this torque in my shins. Try and just release the sacroiliacs, and then you'll drift into the outside edges naturally. Feel the sinking down your spine, filling the sacrum. The sacrum feels more and more swollen, pushing the hip bones apart a little bit and squeezing down into the tail, which is trying to extend downwards. And you feel that split across from the sacrum. There's like a jump into this hip from the sacrum and a jump into this hip. Feel the Dan Shan, the place inside where the descending aorta splits into the two femoral arteries. The flow splits down the spine across the sacrum to the hips, and it splits, the blood splits here and descends down into the legs. Following the descending energy, Down, splitting across the sacrum, down the legs. And then I just lift the hands as far away from my body as possible. And then I bring the flow back in. You can think of the structural body, the spine, the skeleton, or you can think of the circulatory part, the blood flowing down from the heart, pumping down from the heart, splitting into the two legs. And try and keep the two arms separate, never quite in phase. They don't want to be in phase. To bring them into phase, I would have to make the wrong sort of effort. Remember, when the two sides of the body are out of phase, even a little bit, then there will be turning. Try and keep the big toes pressing down. I hadn't realized how important that was until recently. Like in ballet, where when they extend the foot, when they straighten the leg, strong feet. Ty has a friend who's been doing ballet since she was little. And I saw her barefoot jump off the sofa, land on the floor on points. And then going into the two circle exercise. One circle comes towards me, the other circle reaches out. One side of your body is yielding, the other side of your body is attacking or expressing. Hand that goes out, get it to go up a bit. The hand that comes in, get it to drop down a bit. Feel the arm and the leg doing the same thing. As this arm extends out, this leg is straightening. And then to bring that hand in, I bend it, and I also bend the leg. My hand is reaching out, picking the apple, if you like, pulling something in. And my leg is reaching out and pulling that bit of ground towards me, which makes me move towards it. And then just get the two arms making much bigger circuits. So it's the Qigong again, but now alternating the arms, bringing the hand through my head and down through the leg as the other one goes up and reaches out. And then just settling into riding horse again. Feel the heels wanting to push apart as my toes are wanting to pull in and the knees wanting to go out. Feel the sinking, the relaxation. The relaxation flows down through the body, and the strength from the ground flows up the body. They're both gravity, just seeing it from different angles. And now let's be with the strength coming up. So I just reach down and draw up my legs into the sacrum, up the spine and out. So like the weeping willow, this is the branches drooping down to the ground. Then I connect to my roots, sucking energy up the body. Feels very different than when we go the other way. This sense of something growing up your body is very different from the feeling of something flowing down your body. And again, the arms not in phase, not quite anyway. There has to be play in the system. If there isn't, then it's just indicative of the wrong sort of mind, the fascistic, controlling mind. It's like you're squeezing out of a chrysalis, out of like a butterfly emerging. Then back into the riding horse. Feel the sacrum swelling, pushing my hips apart. Feels like my lumbar spine is completely flattened out. So the Min Meng pushing backwards. The Min Meng issues energy, and there's a sense that it distributes all over the back. The toes angling in a little, the big toes especially, helps this sense of containment of the three centers. It's a bit like ward off in the feet. And now breathing. So here my hands start off marking the breath, breathing in, breathing out. And then it gets into the spine. So then my spine is bowing forwards and my spine is arching backwards. And then I want to get it into the legs. I bend the legs here and then straighten them a little here. And really, I'd like to get it coming from my root. There's a sense that that part of your energy that's in the ground is sucking you down here, drawn down by your own root onto the ground. And then here it's as though it's spitting you out, pulling down. Yeah, not quite in phase. Good. Again, just feel that streaming down through the body. Now turning from the legs, straightening the leg, and then bending the leg to pull me round. Straightening the leg, bending. Feeling the leg that pulls almost immediately starting to straighten once I get past the corner. So that final part of my turn is from both legs working. This leg is pushing this hip round here, and this leg is pushing this hip back. So if we don't use the legs like this, if we just use one leg, then we'll tend to miss the centripetal. We'll get the centrifugal because it's all you have to do is turn and the arms will fling out. But to get this feeling of the arms pulling in and wrapping around your spine, I really need to push with both legs so that this leg is pushing this arm around here and this leg is pushing this arm around here. So I'm turning, but there's a real sense of tightening around my spine. I'm spiraling and tightening and squeezing the core each time I reach the maximum turn. Similar to when we were pushing the wall. We're pushing the wall to get the action deep inside us. The legs were pushing up into the spine. The arms were pushing into the spine. It's the same thing here. So here where I'm pushing with both legs, I have to keep my sinking, and then that will squeeze into the spine and I'll get this sense of being constricted. This is very much the waist rather than the hips. So this hand, as it drops, it grabs something from the ground here, brings it up and passes it into the other arm, which then wraps it around and throws it over the opposite shoulder. I'm really coiled up. Keep the sinking going. The sinking is like a grim aspect of your mind that's just really putting yourself under a lot of pressure all the time. Always driving down. And then going into the second one. And now here, some of that has been released and relaxed. So just really feel the turning. The arms feel long, like they're dragging along the ground. Back to right across, toes in a little. Big toes pressing down. The big toe pressing down is partly responsible for the knees doing this, because the expression of the knees is really just the energy coming up the inside of my calves, coming into the knees and then coming out. And now it's figure of 8. So when you ask someone to figure of 8 like this, they're using a sort of studious, careful mind, watching their center of gravity trace a figure of 8 that they imagine is looping around each foot. They're working with their weight, with their center of gravity. That's how they feel themselves. That's what they identify with. But if I was to ask the person to reach for an object on the table and then say, where was your mind when you did that? You know, they'd have to say with the object, you know, because the mind isn't with their weight or with the foot that their weight is in. The mind isn't even with the hand. You know, if they see the object and then they watch their hand moving towards it, the chances are they won't quite hit it. So there's something about our body. We have proprioception, so I can set my eyes on something and then move towards it very accurately because I know my own body. I know how it is in relation to its parts. So that is me being with the spirit. And we can figure out with that. So really what it is that instead of being with the weight, which is very much with the fullness, so with the bent leg. The spirit is with the empty side, with the part that's straightening. So I'm doing a figure of 8 like this. And then if I just change my mind to be with the emptying leg, then it's a figure of 8 again. It's not the same, absolutely, but I'm now like tracing the figure of 8 with this projection of spirit from my empty side. And in a sense, this is much more realistic. This is what we really need to practice. This is much more active. When I'm with my weight, I'm very passive. This is really with that active spirit that has to get more and more intense the further my body moves away from it. And so you can see effectively what's happened is it's become the 2-circle exercise. I'm with the spirit that's going out here, but part of my mind is also with the filling in the other side. So there's really 2 figures of 8s going on, one with the weight, with the center of gravity, which my hand coming in connects to, and one with the spirit, which the hand going out connects to. Spirit goes out, and then I bring it in and pass it to the other side, the same way I would the weight. This feature is like, you know, when you work and it starts cooking after a while, and your mind sort of drifts, and then you come back to it, and you realize you're doing something quite different than you started with, and you just assume, oh, I've got distracted, I'm doing it wrong. But often what has happened is you've just slipped into the energy and the spirit. You've left the body. Because all of these different aspects, the body, the mind, the energy, the spirit, they all are slightly out of phase with each other. When I try and bring them all into phase, it's a bit like using the 2 sides of my body together. It crushes out a lot of the energy, a lot of the detail, the beauty, the life, really. It was a figure of 8, but only approximately. You know, we don't want our designing mind to impose something that's not quite right upon the body simply because we like the image. Feeling that someone is just squashing down on my, pressing my head into my shoulders, pressing my shoulders down into my hips, squeezing my hips down into my feet. That's the feeling of sinking. You know, it's not for everyone. It's not nice. It's just grim. two words that John used to really love. Grim, because it really does describe this feeling of sinking, and glad. That sense that it's like the opposite of grim. There's a, ooh, something has come up. It's a bit like the word gay used to be before it got hijacked. A word Nitzan loves is jolly. I think it's from reading the Enid Blyton books to his kids. Jolly good show. Whenever he used that word, everyone in the class would laugh because it was just quintessentially English. And now let's just try a bit of back and forth. Again, try and make sure your front foot is angled in a little bit. And let's try this one. Feel the two phases of the leg. There's one phase which changes direction. That's the pull, the tug. And then there's the other phase which keeps that going until I get to the end. And then there's the other tug. So one is short energy. The tug is like a click, a catch. And then the other one is this long, almost going on forever energy. So the in-breath and the out-breath, really. So I suck something in and then I expire. You just want to make sure that that initial action that gets me to change direction has a suddenness to it. It's like you can bring your heel off the ground. So when I extend, I'm extending the arm and the leg, but also the fingers and the toes. So there's a sense of my toes coming off the ground. And then to catch the ground, I just, I do that like I'm grabbing a rope with the foot and bring my heel up, and then I'll start moving in the opposite direction. Feel the big toes. Really press them down as you pull. Feel the sinking. Remember, there's those two components to the sinking. Gravity, which is, think of it as either pressing your body down or pulling your body down, and atmospheric pressure. It's feeling almost like I'm in a bear hug. Someone is squeezing into me. I want to feel those as two aspects of basically the same force. In the sense they're both fighting against you, but they're also lending you a lot of strength. Let's change the feet. And getting that front foot angled in. Think of the third toe extending forwards. Big toe really pressing down into the ground, which helps the knee roll out as I come into that leg. I catch and I push, catch, push. Let's try a little bit more against the wall. Remember that the sense of sinking is this feeling of pulling in and pushing that down. This is what we want here. We're using the wall with the ground to help us get right into our core, the spine and the muscles around the spine. Legs as well. Remember, the legs are simply an extension of the spine. Like you have a coiled musculature around the spine and the legs. And we're just working it here. So we're sort of massaging the bones in the legs and the spine and the arms as well. Okay. So back to riding horse. Everything is drawn in. You're on a trigger. If anyone was to touch you, they'd spring back like sprung steel. Remember that story of young Chen Ho? And he woke up one morning and there was a rat dead on the ceiling because the rat had run across him and he'd just fired it off in his sleep. And also that lovely story of young Van Ho asleep under the tree in autumn, and none of the leaves could land on him because as they drifted down, he would just slip and the leaf would drift off him. Just beautiful stories, really. So if I want to be able to express my energy with a ping, then I really need to be coiled up and internalized. Bring it up. And just a little bit of this. Figures of eights around the feet. Part of this thing of coiling up, tightening around the bones, it's just really being able to get internal movement without actually moving the body too much. You can really feel it here. So I'm trying not to move my foot too much, but something is flowing through it. Not so much a flow, more like it's sort of inching its way through, creeping. Keep the big toes down. And then bringing it back. And now just have the toes pointing in. Remember, we used to start the form like that for a while. You can feel it just open up the sacrum. You just get this energy coming up the inside much more obviously. From my bubbling well, up my instep, basically along the kidney meridian, up into the groin here, up the spine and out of the head. My pressing down of the big toes, that sucks this energy up. It looks good.